Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Purdy Insurance. Visit Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury or visit online at purdyinsurance.com.
Let's bring in Scott Lauber, who is one of the best in the business. Scott, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
Doing well. What was it just like for you on a personal basis to cover a World Series and do it because you were covering the Philadelphia Phillies?
It was pretty hectic, pretty crazy. So I've been covering baseball for 17 years, and I've been fortunate enough to cover now 4 World Series involving the team that I covered, 3 with the Phillies, and 1 with the Red Sox. And so it's always a little bit more hectic when the team that you cover is involved in it. But, the stories are tremendous. The longer it goes, I think the more tired you get, but also the better the stories get, and the more people get into it. And it was really kind of cool, I'll say this, to watch the city kind of morph back into a baseball town again for a month. It was very different, when I left in 2010 than when I came back in 2018. It had always been kind of it was an Eagles town already, but it had really sort of taken hold. And the Phillies had been bad for so long, and it was kind of right up until, when they clinched a playoff spot on October 3rd, I think a lot of people weren't sure if they'd make it or not. Maybe they'll blow it, and to watch the city from about October 3rd right through the end of it, so for a solid month, kind of turn back into a baseball town, that was pretty neat. That was pretty cool to see.
Except for maybe places like St. Louis and a couple of other places, isn't that really the case now in most cities across the country, where it really takes something like this to transform them back into a baseball town?
Yeah, I guess so. I think Philly is a baseball town. I just think it was a dormant one. It was a baseball town that hadn't seen the postseason in 11 years. And, look, it when you see it. You travel the country and you cover baseball, and when you're in a baseball city and when you're not. And, it doesn't have to be St. Louis, and it doesn't have to be New York. There are certain cities in the country that feel a little bit more passionate about baseball than others. And, I think Philly falls into the category of a really good baseball city when they have something to cheer about. And they haven't had anything to cheer about for a really long time until this year. The Phillies had the second longest postseason drought of any active team, or active postseason drought of any team. And for a few days there at the end of September, after the Mariners clinched, it was officially the long drought.
Right.
And I think for it to come back the way it did, it was really, like I said, it was really neat to see, and it'll be interesting to see going forward now whether the momentum for baseball and the momentum for this Phillies team kind of carries well past opening day or not. And I suspect it will. I think that the city kind of fell for this team a little bit, and not that they're not going to go crazy if the Phillies start next year 22 and 29 the way they started this year. But I do think that there's some affinity now for some of these for a bunch of these players, and I think there's the hope there that it's going to be more than a 1-year deal.
And one of them, of course, is Bryce Harper. You've been around some great teams over the years that you have covered. How enjoyable is it when your best player plays the way he does?
Yeah, I saw it. The only thing I can compare it to on a personal on a personal basis with a team that I've covered is David Ortiz in the mid 2010s. David Ortiz in 2013 hits the home run against the Tigers in the postseason that sends Torrey Hunter flipping over the right field wall at Fenway Park. And that home run and Matt Stairs' home run in 2008. That's really the only two that I can compare to what Harper did in Game 5 in the NLCS. Hitting the home run to essentially clinch the pennant. And really, it was that one and the Ortiz one for me were the two that, because they were signature players in a signature moment, those are legacy kind of things. And, he had a great month. I know he didn't have didn't set the world on fire in the World Series, but I didn't think the Astros were going to give him a whole lot to hit, and they didn't. And so, yeah, I mean, it was really quite something to see. It's always quite something, I think, to see a great player rise to the occasion in a moment like that. To be great at the precise time that you would expect him to. So it was definitely something to watch for sure.
All right. I did not see Game 6 because I was on the plane coming back from Indiana. So I didn't. So what I'm doing is what I'm read about, didn't really watch it. But in reading about how it played out, it gave me the impression, and again, not seeing it, of Kevin Cash and Blake Snell in Game 6. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. Similar circumstances, similar situations. And I will say this, and I feel like I've been saying this a lot, writing this a lot in the last 48 hours. This is something that we see a lot in baseball nowadays. It's not just Rob Thompson, and it's not just the Phillies.
Right.
A lot of teams essentially script out the game at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They decide early in the day early in the series, in this case, that Jose Alvarado is going to face Yordan Alvarez in the first high-leverage moment of a close game, and that's what they do. And, we praised Rob Thompson for doing it in Game 1, in part because it worked, but also because, we said, oh, look how aggressive he's being, look how bold he's being by bringing in Alvarado in the 5th inning to face Alvarez. And, it was the right moment in that game. It just was. It just felt like the moment called for that kind of urgency and that kind of aggressiveness. And, then they used Ranger Suarez in the 7th inning, and that worked. And, we said, oh, my gosh, look at this bold bullpen managing. Well, the situation was not the same in Game 6. It might have been the same inning, and it might have been the same batter, and it might have been the same reliever that he called in. But Zach Wheeler was pitching the game of his life. He'd thrown 70 pitches to that point. His last pitch was a 97-mile-an-hour sinker that Jeremy Pena rolled up the middle for a base hit. I mean, if the infield is shaded a little differently, it might be a double play. There was no sign that Wheeler was losing it. There was no sign of any let-up. There was no indication whatsoever that, even though there were runners on the corners in a one-run game, there was no indication, at least to me, that he had lost control of that game. And so if I'm managing, and I have no way to prove this except for the guy who was sitting to my right, David Murphy, is a colleague of mine at the Inquirer, and I looked at him and I said, I don't like this move right here. Other than him, nobody else heard me say that, so you'll have to, but I mean, it just didn't feel like it was the right time to take Wheeler out of that game. And, if it doesn't work out, if Wheeler gives up a hit or if he gives up a home run or you lose the lead and you lose the game, well, at least you could sit there and go, you know what, we lost with our best pitcher on the mound and he was dealing. And, you can kind of live with that. And they can't say that. They have to say that, they went to the matchups and they went to, they went to, what the matchups say is the safer play, is the better play. And I just, to me, and again, like I said, it's not just Rob Thompson and it's not just the Phillies.
Right, exactly.
To me, a lot of teams don't do that anymore. They don't go with kind of what it feels right in the moment, but rather what made sense at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when they looked over the matchups.
Okay, so in the off season, let's talk about Bryce Harper. Is he looking at any kind of surgery in the off season?
It's possible. We'll know more, I think, here in the next few days.
Okay.
But it's possible. He has this elbow thing and hasn't been able to throw, and it's just going to be a question now of whether the doctors think that 3 months or 4 months of rest will clear this up. And I have no idea medically, what this thing looks like or anything like that. But it does give you pause when you see that he missed 2 months of the season with a broken thumb, and when he came back and he tried to throw, it wasn't the elbow wasn't a whole lot better. So, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but certainly if he needs any kind of procedure, they're going to want to do it here sooner than later. They've already lost, obviously, a month of their off season because they went so deep in the playoffs. If he's going to need any kind of surgery and it's going to keep him out any length of time, they're going to want to do it as soon as they can.
All right. Which now brings us to the shortstop situation. And by the way, Bryson Stott, I can't say enough good things about him. In terms of a person, being on the show, the whole thing. But boy, there's some intriguing names out there like Carlos Correa, Xander Bogaerts, who have all have decided to use their options to become free agents. Is this something a direction the Phillies might consider?
Yeah, I think they'll explore it. And I agree with you on Stott. I'm a huge fan of his. I think he had a really nice rookie year that I think you had to see to appreciate. I don't think it's one of those deals where you can look at the numbers and they're going to jump off the page at you and you're going to say, because he didn't put up great numbers. But I mean, if you watch the at bats, they were all competitive at bats. He was not a comfortable out. He was not an easy out for anybody. I thought he took made even more strides after they released Didi Gregorius and made Stott the everyday shortstop. And,
yep.
He had a really nice year. But if you can slide him over to second base, where I thought he really played well in Gene Segura's absence earlier this year, and you can sign a Trey Turner or a Dansby Swanson or a Correa or a Bogaerts, you obviously make yourself that much better. So we'll know more, I think, again in the next couple of days. They have a decision to make on Segura, who has an option. They probably will decline the option. And if they do that, I think that's a signal that they're going to get involved in the shortstop market, at least, see what they can do and see what's out there. And it may even work for them financially. I mean, the one thing that might give you some pause is that to get Turner or to get Swanson or the other guys, Correa and Bogaerts, you're going to have to go. You're going to have to give them quite a number of years on that deal. But
yes.
At the same time, if you take Segura's money and you take Didi Gregorius's money, which is coming off the books, and you put them together, it probably adds up to what the annual value of a shortstop deal would be for one of these guys. So financially, they might be able to make it work. It's just going to be a question of whether or not it's going to be whether they want to get involved in another long-term deal again.
It's a big question, especially when you've tasted the World Series. And you're thinking, can we get back there? Interesting. You do great work. I really enjoy reading your stuff. I feel like when I'm done reading it, I've learned more about what's going on. Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Anytime.